Alright, hello and welcome to my UFC 226 Cormier versus Stipe predictions and tips video. Today is the 28th of the 6th, 2018. What are we? We're like a week and a half out from the fights. I had very real intentions of because there was so much time between cards, I thought that I would get in and study every fight on this card, and then do a really comprehensive breakdown video. Instead, what happened, life got in the way. That isn't realistic for me. I kept giving it time and not finding the time to study all the fights. So what I have resolved to do is I've made my picks, all my straight picks at least. I'm going to do this video today, go through the card. Some fights you will see I've looked at in depth, other fights you will see I have not looked at all. Like Moyle versus Whitmire, for example, I couldn't tell you the first thing about that fight. So luckily that's the first one. So I'm just going to go through, I'll tell you the fights I've picked, and I can give you a degree of certainty how I feel about those ones. Other picks I make may be more hunchy, if that is indeed a word, but it works for me. I like hunchy. So yeah, depending on what you're looking for, this won't be a fight by fight breakdown with comprehensive, very absolute picks. Fuck, my laptop's about to shit itself, which is pain. We should be alright though, because I got this other one here. We'll just see how we go. I might need to open something here. Oh yeah, no, we're good. So yeah, not super comprehensive, but what I may do is put another video up next week. I feel like it's real weird when I'm making picks. When I first start looking at a card, I feel absolutely fucking lost. Like I might have a few hunches here and there just looking at the card on face value, but it's like a puzzle. I think I've said this before, and I'm like, where do I start? And then as it gets closer and closer to fight day, I start to get like a feel kind of for the whole card, and each fight I take in more and more information, and then by fight day I usually feel like I have a really good grasp on the card, most of it if not all of it, which isn't great for the purpose of doing these videos, because that happens too late for me due to time constraints that I have. I have a life to live outside of fucking watching men in little shorts roll around all sweaty and shit. So that's what today's video is going to be. May get another one up next week. We'll definitely get my picks up, because I've already got some picks for the tough finale. We'll get my picks video for that up next week. And are there fights on this weekend? I'm not even sure, because I've been too enveloped in this 226 business. Real excited to get into it. I think the last video I did for Singapore, I went from the top of the card down. For this one, there's no way you can talk about DC Stipe first and then go down to, what is it, Moyle Whitmire. So what we will do is begin at the bottom, work our way to the top, and see how it goes. Like I said, some fights I'm going to have more in-depth insights to. Some I'm just looking at face value, haven't watched any tape. The thing with watching tape is once you start, like, so it's a commitment, or at least I find it's a commitment. So I will, some fights I'll be like, I'll have a little look, but once I start watching tape, you watch one fight or someone, then you'll be like, whoa, obviously they would have fought this opponent differently on a different night. And so you want to start getting like pulling from all different fights to get a big general picture. Fuck, there's so much to take into account with a fighter, and then the opponent they're gonna be facing and opponents they have faced. It's fucking rabbit hole. So yeah, there's fights I've done tape on here, the ones I bet on obviously, and I think I did some tape on some and then didn't bet, because that'll often happen as well. I will look at a fight, look at both fighters, and then decide that I can't, in or of a sound mind, put my money on that fight. So, in saying that, we're gonna start with a real fucking dud, not on their behalf, on my behalf, and that's the Moore Whitmire fight. I don't know anything about either of these fighters. I believe I may have seen Moore fight. She had a UFC debut recently, didn't she? So, anyhow, I can't pick that fight just for fucking sake of it. Let's say Jamie Moore. I think she's the betting favourite, so we'll just do that for now. The next fight, a couple of days ago, this wasn't listed on the UFC site, or maybe I missed it somehow. But where is it? I'm sure I got some notes on this somewhere. I lost them. Oh fuck, I fucking deleted it or something. Anyhow, I should be able to go through this without my notes. It's Lando Vanetta and Drakkar Klose. I'm definitely gonna miss some things that I noted down, which is a pain in the ass. But I think I've said before on here that Lando Vanetta is one of my favorite fighters to watch. He's super exciting, explosive, athletic. He throws like those spinning kicks without any telegraphing. They just fucking come out of nowhere. So fast and accurate as well. So he'll often land them, and the spinning back kick to the body and just crazy techniques, and he's super fluent. So yeah, I think that's what stands out about him, is you don't see setup. He'll just kind of like spring into them out of nowhere. You often see guys, if they're going to do something with a spin, the commentator will pick it up. He's like, look, he's looking to set up that spinning kick, whatever. Vanetta, you don't get a chance to do that. He just fucking does it out of nowhere. So it's super exciting. The price he pays for that obviously is in cardio, so he expends lots of energy, and yeah, that costs him, or can cost him. And this fight against Drakkar Klose, I watched a bit of tape on Drakkar Klose. Interesting character. So who was his last fight against? What's his name? Fucking David Tamor. And Tamor really frustrated him by staying on the outside and just only engaging to counter. And Drakkar kept. Another point about this fight before I get into this is how excellent are both fighters' names, Lando Vanetta and Drakkar Klose. There's a matchup of excellent names. And yeah, Drakkar Klose got really frustrated, and it seemed like he lost a bit of focus in that fight because he was very preoccupied with what? Oh, shit, it's gone all dark. I'll get this laptop back up in a second. I'll have some light from it. Where was I? Yeah, so he seemed to get in his own head a bit and was motioning to David Tamor as if he wasn't doing anything, but Drakkar was also doing nothing. And at one point, Herb Dean steps in and warns unfairly, I think, Drakkar Klose about their... sorry, not Drakkar Klose, David Tamor about there not being enough action. So I was watching that fight, observed that he lost that fight. Close fight though. And I think, if I remember correctly, Klose put it on him a bit in the final round. Once he fucking got his mind on the job. So, not the worst performance in that loss. Prior to that, who was his fight before that against? But it wasn't quite as bad in the previous fight. But I saw him have a similar kind of issue against another opponent where he was getting really frustrated with them not engaging, and it was a similar situation where it was like, well, you're in there, like you can't request that your opponent does what you want them to do. So yeah, another strange situation, and I think so. Going into this fight, the mindsets of the two fighters are interesting because obviously Groovy Lando is a very composed customer. So if anyone remembers his debut, he came in against Tony Ferguson, and I forget how much notice, but it was little notice. Came in, rocked Ferguson, nearly got Ferguson out of there, and just had a great performance in a high pressure situation. And then you see him in other fights, he'll get tagged really hard and he just appears unfazed. So interesting matchup here, and I couldn't really call it. I don't really have a read on who will prevail in this fight. I think my instincts were telling me close, just because he's more solid. But then there's always a chance that Vanetta lands something fucking crazy. So I didn't feel super comfortable picking against him. But I will say I believe close wins a decision in that fight. So that's my pick for that fight, but not betting it. Gonna pass. In the next fight, we have from New Zealand. Oh, it's the other thing I forgot to say is tweeted Lando Vanetta a while ago because he comes out to what is it? Let This Groove, that song, old soul song. Yeah, he comes out to that, and I was like, suggested he come out to I'm So Groovy by Future, which the hook goes, the lyrics go, I'm so groovy, I got power. It's so fucking perfect for a fighter. And he said, no, my walkout song's better. So, whatever, you try and help people, eh? Next fight, Daniel Hooker versus Gilbert Burns. Very exciting fight here. I think, yeah, Daniel Hooker's really made people take notice recently. He has just looked more and more impressive since going up to 55. And something I've noticed is you hear him referenced a lot now. So when people are talking about changing divisions or just styles and whatnot, people often reference Daniel Hooker now. So he's becoming a bit of a name. Just looking at his record here, I didn't realize he was 16-7. So he's taken some losses, but they were... Yeah, he's on a 3-fight win streak now. Miller, Diakese, and Pearson before losing tonight. So in the UFC, he's been around for a while. I was at his debut in Auckland. That was 2014. Shit. I'm feeling old. But yeah, Hooker's looked incredible recently. Gilbert Burns, I think he's coming off that huge knockout this year. Burns is 13-2. Yeah, and he had that KO of Dan Murray in April of this year. So, shit, just 2 months. 2 months and a couple of weeks. So I guess that's enough time for a camp, especially if you finish someone pretty easily. Fight before that was KO as well. Both second round KOs. And then prior to that, he had a decision loss to the Tractor. I fancy Hooker in this fight. I think if you watch any of my videos about Singapore, I talked about the city kickboxing team and what they're doing, how impressive those fighters are looking. And I believe that they will prevail again. I'm just putting faith in that team, and I think they are doing excellent things. So I'm picking Hooker here. I haven't placed a bet yet, but I do intend to include him in some parlays. I thought about doing a city kickboxing parlay with Daniel Hooker and Israel Adesanya, but I could have included Shane Young in that too. I wish I had have now. That would have been a cool little parlay to pull off if they all got wins. But yeah, I'm picking Hooker to win that, and fuck knows how recently he's been knocking dudes out. Prior to that, he was submitting them, so I don't really want to call it, but I think Hooker wins. And that's what he does. I wouldn't be surprised if it's on the feet though. Yeah, look at those. The 2 KOs by knee in his last 3 fights, and that's since June of last year. It was the first one against Pearson. So yeah, I fancy Hooker in that fight. Very excited for it. And yeah, should he get that win, what is next? Very interesting. Next fight, I believe I do still have my notes for this, is Melinda. Fuck, I fucking lost it. Horse shit. Damn, I'm very sorry. I should be more prepared. I meant to say at the beginning I felt real shit today because I've been working and whatnot. But, so I've lost my notes for this fight, which is fucking great. Oh, but I'm not betting it, am I? What's his name? Curtis Melinda versus Max Griffin. I did tape on this fight. I'm trying to recall what I surmised from it, but I definitely surmised that I wasn't going to bet this fight because I couldn't trust either guy, and I can't remember what the fuck I watched now. This is why I need my notes. Very sorry about this. I'll just see if they're in my email here. Nope. I've deleted them or something, like a fucking buffoon. So yeah, I'm trying to remember what I thought of this fight, but I think I definitely thought Max Griffin was going to win. Melinda, whilst a good striker, seemed, in all the tape I watched on him, he had terrible cardio issues. So I figured that Griffin would find a way, with his experience and skill, find a way to tire out Melinda and then deal to him once he's gassed. Trying to see the odds for this. Yeah, so Max Griffin's a big underdog as well. And I quite fancy him. Perhaps I will include him in something, but if I do, it'll be a very small bet because I can't remember what I saw, but I remember seeing something that gave me pause about betting him. What a fucking waste of time doing all that tape and then like not keeping my notes, because my memory is fucking shocking, as you've probably noticed if you watch any of my videos. I have real terrible recall, which isn't great if you're aspiring to be some sort of semi-pro gambler or something. But anyhow, my pick for that fight is Max Griffin. I think he can get that done there, and we may place a bet later on in the piece. I'm moving along the card. Yancy Medeiros versus Mike Perry. I didn't even bother looking at this. I think it could be a very exciting fight, but I don't particularly trust either guy. I fancy Perry. He's the heavier puncher, and I don't know. You saw what Medeiros did against Cerrone, and if he tries that approach with Perry, I like his chances of getting knocked out. But Perry's paying fuck all money to win, so I don't bother looking into it. I'm just gonna enjoy that fight. It should be an exciting one. So not too much to say there. Perry looking to bounce back after, is it a loss or 2 losses? So we'll see what happens. Perry's last loss to Max Griffin. Yeah, so that's what I was watching. Griffin versus Perry. And I think, thinking about it now, maybe I do want to bet Max Griffin because he withstood Mike Perry and did a real good job in that fight. And Perry, whilst much more one-dimensional than Melinda, he kept at it for 3 rounds, whereas I think Melinda's got like a round, if that, of going after it. So maybe more dangerous for a time, but not for a sustained amount of time. And Max Griffin did a real good job of staying out of harm's way against Perry, and then landing his own offense. So we'll see. So yeah, Medeiros versus Perry. I picked Perry by knockout, but not too invested either way. I just want to enjoy that fight. Next fight, I think this is one of the widest odd margins on the card, is Paulo Borrachinha Costa versus Uriah Hall. Did not look at this fight either. No way I'm betting Uriah Hall, and I'm pretty sure Borrachinha takes this fight. He's unbeaten, isn't he? Yeah, 11-0. Who's he beaten? Last win was against Hendricks, Bambose. It's not the crazy Gareth McClellan. That's his UFC win, so not crazy competition, but still can't trust Uriah Hall. Maybe people fancy Uriah Hall for a bit of dog money. He's paying like, what is it? Uriah Hall, $4.75. Yeah, but nah, I will stay the fuck away from that. Thank you very much. I got my big underdog sorted for this card. Next fight up, Gohan Saki versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. Another one didn't look at. Don't trust either guy. Saki gassed in his debut and then proved he was still dangerous while gassed as well. Obviously, the game plan for Khalil here will be to make Saki wrestle and grapple, and either he will succeed in that or he will get knocked the fuck out. So hopefully he gets knocked the fuck out. I'd like to see Saki do well, but he didn't look great in his debut, so he's pretty green at this, I think. Real accomplished striker, obviously, but doesn't have a full MMA game yet, it would appear. We'll see. We'll see how he's developed in this fight. Moving on to the next card, Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Pettis. And I know I haven't lost my notes on this because I did them last night. At least I hope I haven't. Where are we? Yeah. So, Michael Chiesa, my first notes on this were he comes out to awful rock music and has tattoos that are worse than most, but not all of mine. And he was a massive sook about that Kevin Lee loss. So in case you haven't gathered, not a huge fan of Michael Chiesa. Yeah, I thought the Kevin Lee thing, he didn't do himself any favors whinging about that. Everyone saw what happened. And I don't think he had anything to complain about. But did that stop him? No. He whined and whined and whined. Anyhow, in saying that, I need to put my biases aside and judge this fight. And I actually have a bet on Michael Chiesa, I believe, to beat Anthony Pettis. Yeah, so 5 units on Michael Chiesa. I'm pretty confident in this. Pettis, obviously a shadow of his former self. His recent run has... Yeah, so he's lost 5 of his last 7. And to be fair to him, those losses are to Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway, Edson Barboza, Eddie Alvarez, and Rafael dos Anjos. So, the best of the best, really. His wins are over Jim Miller and Charles Oliveira. So, yeah, losses to great competition and then wins over these current, well, when he fought Oliveira 2016, he's a flaky dude. And then 2017 Jim Miller, yeah, not much stock to take in that. So real disparities in his wins and losses in recent times. Um, where's my notes? So apart from the stupid notes about Chiesa, in the last few years, Chiesa's only fought once a year. Um, that might not be his own doing. That could just be with difficulty in the division getting the matchups he wants. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe injuries. I'm not sure. Didn't look that deep into it. Definitely a finisher. So Chiesa's 70% of his wins are by submission. So he can definitely get submission wins. Pettis got a good ground game, but fuck, when Chiesa gets that squeeze on, it's fucking brutal. So I think he could sub Pettis. Uh, the Chiesa's really tall for 55. Southpaw looks a bit hittable, but he can eat some shots. He's pretty durable. Um, his striking is pretty limited and predictable. He just goes back and back to that 1-2. That his cross is nice and long, but looks a bit sloppy. But it looks like if he catches it with you, it does a bit of damage. Um, don't think Pettis will shoot on him. But if he does, I think Chiesa can definitely defend the takedown. He has a nice takedown of his own, and his back take is pretty fucking fast and phenomenal. Uh, he does a huge weight cut apparently, and Pettis obviously has been fucking around with different divisions, been down to 45, back up at 55. So I think the size difference could be really huge here. I think Chiesa might be able to, well, I think he will be able to manhandle Pettis. And yeah, I don't think Pettis will be able to keep it standing, which is what I'm sure he will want to do. Be interesting with I guess Chiesa ain't that young now, is he? So where are we at? What's his age there? It doesn't fucking have it on the UFC site. Great, but yeah, I wouldn't expect vast improvements in his stand-up, but you never know. He might have worked on some things. He has those big breaks between fights, so we'll see. But yeah, 5 units on Michael Chiesa to win that fight, and I'm quite confident he will do so. Anthony Pettis seems to be on his way out, and he's not even that old, is he? But shortly, I think. Moving on to the next fight, huge one. This is going to be crazy watching this, building up to these final 3 fights on this card. Like, fights below it, incredible fights. Vanetta close, Hooker Burns, Medeiros Perry, Assunção and Font. Oh fuck, I missed Assunção and Font, so I got to go back. Fuck, terrible. I'm sorry. I have a bet on that fight as well. If you're listening and you're familiar with the card, you're probably going, what the fuck are you doing? So, we'll quickly zip back to that. Rafael Assunção, a fighter that goes hugely underappreciated, I think, for how good his skills are. His only loss in the last 7 years is to TJ Dillashaw, and he also has a win over TJ. He has a win over Marlon Moraes. He got a lot of decision wins, but in the case of this guy and at that division, I don't think that's a huge concern. He's got a real solid frame for the division. His left high kick is dangerous as fuck. Good at frustrating opponents by making them miss when they're attacking coming forward. Changes levels with his attacks, goes to the body, head, back and so forth and so on. Nice varied attacks. And one thing I really liked about Assunção is he looks to seal rounds. So mentioned that he has lots of decision wins. This is a guy that knows how to win a decision. So at the end of the round, he'll go after his opponent. You don't see that thing where he's considering, wow, should I attack or should I, like, I'm fucking tired. He he throws it on his opponent at the end of rounds and seals rounds and wins decisions. So Font's got long, big reach, nice striking, coming off a real good win versus Almeida. Average takedown defense, which could be a concern in this fight. If he begins, so what I've seen of Assunção, he's generally pretty happy to stand and trade and beat guys there. But say he starts losing the striking to Font, I think he can get the fight to the ground and dominate there. Just overall, I think Assunção is a title contender. I don't think Rob Font is. Assunção's top 5 guy. Don't think Rob Font is. And I think we will see that. So on that fight, I have put down, what do we got? 6 units on Assunção. So looking forward to that one. I didn't mention also I got one parlay played thus far on Borrachinha and Chiesa. 3 units on that parlay. I will do some more parlays later for sure as well. I think we're going to make some money. Back to the card. So as I was saying before, we get to the final 3 fights. The first of those final 3 being Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou. Didn't do any tape on this. I don't think I would have seen anything hugely enlightening that would have given me a read. It's just a matter of who lands first. I suspect that is going to be Francis Ngannou. I think he's more explosive. I think he's faster. This is just me thinking off the top of my head. But yeah, so I think Ngannou gets this done. Ngannou also showed he's got a chin against what's his name, old blockhead Stipe. So yeah, I fancy Francis in this fight. Man, I wish Derek Lewis was more talented than he is. Like, he's a great fighter, very entertaining, but just his personality, I would love to see him as a champion, but I don't think we're ever going to see that because of his limited skill set. But he would make an incredible champion, just such an irreverent attitude and a hilarious guy. So yeah, I think Ngannou gets this done, and in my recap we'll talk about what the ramifications of that are for the division, but up in the air and interesting. But I guess we'll know what happens between Miocic versus Cormier then as well, so we might have a clearer idea of what happens. So prediction there, Ngannou by knockout. And yeah, that's probably not going to pay very much money, so not betting anything on that fight. I think even the under won't be worth betting. It'll probably be shite. Next fight, another hugely exciting matchup that I'm very excited for. Didn't do any tape on this because I knew from the onset there's no way I was going to bet it. Holloway versus Ortega. My instinct tells me Holloway wins this fight. I think Holloway might be the most skilled fighter in the UFC at the moment. And I think one day we will talk about him as a pound for pound great. But in saying that, just what Ortega has been doing recently, I don't feel comfortable at all betting against that guy. Props to people who got the balls to bet this fight, but I wasn't going to go near it. Ortega's obviously improving, and I feel like there's an angle you could take on this where you look at Ortega's, I think all his fights almost he's been outstruck by his opponents, but he still wins all his fights. So obviously Holloway is a different kind of striker from anyone he has faced before, and also Holloway's long and tall also, like Ortega. So I suspect that Holloway keeps his standing and pieces Ortega up on the feet, but we're going to find out in this fight if Ortega is indeed the real deal. And Holloway is, whilst being young, is very experienced. He's more experienced of the two. I don't think this will be the last time, whatever the outcome, that we see these two fight, because I think Ortega still has lots of improvements to make and is improving rapidly. So I think if Ortega takes the L, he will work his way back to another shot against Holloway fairly shortly, depending on what happens with Holloway, whether he goes up to 55 or not. And fuck, they might meet at 55 at some point. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But very exciting, two young fighters in that division who are on incredible runs, meeting each other. That's pretty fucking exciting. And probably not as exciting as the next fight though. Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic. If you've been watching my previous videos, you'll see I've been catching some flack from people, and rightly so. I think people are going to feel passionate about this fight. I don't really understand it, but people passionately like Stipe. Hey, if fights were won on personality, I feel like the odds would be flipped and in favor of DC the way they are in favor of Stipe at the moment. I find that dude so fucking bland. Anyhow, I always delve off into personalities and shit, but can't help it. That's how I am wired. This fight, I think I've been wanking on about it heaps in the last few videos, but I got 6 units on DC at Big Dog Money. Yeah, and I don't know how much of that is just me betting with my heart because I love DC, but I really, really think he's going to win. So I got in trouble with people the other week because I said that Stipe's title run has been a myth, which was unfair. What I meant to say is I think it's been overstated and overrated. The win against Verdum came rushing at him like an idiot, paid the price. Overeem almost got him out of there though. So Overeem almost became the champion. I don't know if people forget that or not. And yeah, I just don't think it's as impressive as people say it is. Obviously Stipe's got good wrestling, nice boxing, big power. He's been knocking everyone out. I just don't see him catching DC. I think DC is going to crowd him, put a pace on him that Stipe can't handle. People often talk about Stipe's cardio, but I don't think he has incredible cardio. I think when Ngannou came out swinging wild at him, he adrenaline dumped and didn't have much gas left. Like, that fight sucked because Stipe had gassed, but not as much as Ngannou, but he gassed enough not to get Ngannou out of there, and he just kind of held him on the ground and did fuck all with him. Beat him up a bit, and it was the same with the Hunt fight as well. So I don't know. I think obviously there is a danger here that DC could get clipped early on. We all know DC's kryptonite are kicks, which Stipe doesn't. Stipe don't have a great kicking game, but he does have great boxing, and his boxing in close is really good too. So that is a very real concern for me when betting DC, is that as he moves in and tries to crowd and pressure Stipe, that Stipe clips him with one of those hooks. But I think this fight goes past a round and a half, 2 rounds. I think it's all DC. People keep labeling Stipe the greatest heavyweight of all time, but he has a loss to Stefan Struve, and I know that was a green Stipe, but picture DC, or like if you're talking greatest heavyweight of all time, picture Cain Velasquez losing a fight to Stipe. You can't fucking do it. I know it's heavyweight division, whatnot, But what was I gonna say? Picture DC losing to Struve. Like his mentality would not allow that. Oh yeah, so that's the point I was going on is, yeah, you could argue that that was a pretty green Stipe, but look at what a green DC was doing at heavyweight. Like winning that Strikeforce tournament against a very experienced and wily Josh Barnett, who was huge. And DC handled him pretty fucking easily when he was a green fighter. Not super experienced at that point. And he made that look relatively easy, and he's much more developed now. Like, so essentially the core of his style is the same, but he's developed, man. And I don't like, so I don't think Stipe, DC is really a light heavyweight. We all know his reasons for going down. And I think we might see a better incarnation of him. So he's been doing, he's been maturing and peaking at light heavyweight. But what if indeed he is actually a heavyweight after all? I know he's very short for the division, but that's where he started. Yeah, I think DC can get it past a round and a half. It's all his. And he will put a pace on Stipe that Stipe can't even fucking nearly handle. And I'm looking forward to some point from the 2.5 minute mark in the second round, DC picking Stipe up and taking him for a ride and dumping him on the mat, and everyone that fucking doubted me knowing that that's the turning point in the fight, and it's all DC. In saying that, I'm fucking prepared to take my beans if I'm wrong about this, and it's gonna hurt, but I'm gonna have to suck it up because I've been very vocal about this. And people are gonna give me hella shit, and rightly so. So if I have fucked it up, feel free to give me shit. I'll eat it. But yeah, so fucking excited about that fight either way. I'm gonna be so tense. Like when they dim the lights, just before the as Bruce Buffer's talking and all the lights go out. Holy fuck, that is gonna be tense. But I think you're gonna see DC, the fucking consummate winner. And this moment is gonna mean so much to him. Like this opportunity, him for really like change the conversation about his legacy to always being tied up with John Jones. Like there'll be an element of that, but this is his opportunity to move past that. I think that's gonna mean heaps to him. And like if we know anything about DC, winning is super important to him. Yeah, I just can't see. I hate the thought of this moment, this career-defining moment, evading him. So I really, really, really hope he gets it done. I'm banking on it, literally and figuratively. Fucking laptop's going out again. So yeah, I'm picking DC, and I think that would be a decision, I imagine. Although, fucking Stipe's shown that he can get rocked and knocked out by Stefan Struve. I would like to remind the Stipe fans again that he was KO'd by Stefan Struve. But all good. Just a couple of other things to go over during the week. Oh yeah, did I cover all my picks? Yeah. So those are the ones I got for now. I may well do another video next week and update the picks if I've added some parlays, which I most likely will do. And I will also do predictions and tips video for the tough finale. I was thinking about, there's one thing I want to talk about before I sign off today, was that so during the week Rashad Evans and Johnny Hendricks both retired, and I was thinking about how I thought about both those fighters, and why I thought of them differently, because they're both, you know, kind of incredible legendary figures during their peak, and then I've had both had quite horrible, sad declines. And I think it was just recency bias for me, but well, that's what I surmised. But I felt more fond of Johnny Hendricks, and then I was trying to think of why, because Rashad Evans did incredible things too. He was a juggernaut in the UFC back in the day. But I just think that, I don't know, maybe Hendricks' feats were more impressive. He had some incredible fights. Most people, I think the general consensus is that he beat GSP when GSP was like unbeatable, seemingly. And then those great fights with Lawler, then punching people fucking across the octagon. And I guess that's just more, those are more recent memories, so that's probably why I felt more fond of him. But yeah, two guys retiring in the same week who like epitomize how not to go out graciously. Both their the final years of their careers have just been fucking sad. So bit of a sad note, but yeah, peace to those guys. I'm gonna log off. Where we're at, 46 minutes. This might be the longest video I've ever done, and I will undoubtedly add to it next week with some more UFC 226 predictions. I wanna keep saying this and not doing anything about it, just because my life is fucking tumultuous at the moment, moving house and whatnot, work and shit. But it would be probably good timing to get my brother on. Him being a pro fighter and coach, I would really like to quiz him about what he thinks this, because he's fought at lots of different weights. I'm interested to hear his thoughts about what we could expect to see from DC going up a weight class, whether that increases his pace and cardio, or the extra weight he's carrying decreases his speed. We'll see. Because DC does those massive cuts. That's why I'm real interested to see, is I think he's going to look better than we've seen him look in recent fights, because without that cut, I think he's going to come in looking good. But we shall see. So maybe I'll be able to get my brother on next week if I can sort out some software and shit. But anyhow, I didn't get into any feedback or anything. I'm sorry if you had something important to say and I am ignoring it. But yeah, do want to say we had some real good numbers views wise and stuff last week. So I'm really appreciative of you listening to me fucking wank on. And yeah, good luck for your picks if you're gambling money. Put the house on DC. Trust me. No, I can't guarantee that. But yeah, I'm looking to get a big win there. So thank you. I really appreciate your attention and time. And I'll be back next week with a couple of videos. One for Tough Finale, another for UFC 226. Thank you.